The bullet missed Dahlia Fletcher's heart by 3 inches, but the lie aimed at it would prove far more dangerous. She stood in the dusty street of Eureka, California, on an August morning in 1878, watching the stagecoach pull away with her entire life packed inside. The wound in her shoulder throbbed, but not nearly as much as the memory of what had just happened. Her former friend, Catherine Morley, had stood before the town marshal not an hour ago and sworn on a Bible that Dahlia had been stealing from the general store where they both worked. The accusation was false, completely and utterly false, but Catherine's tears had been convincing enough that Dahlia found herself unemployed, her reputation in tatters, and her small room above the store no longer available to her. What Catherine wanted was clear as mountain water. Wade Quinlan, the ranch foreman at the sprawling Double J Ranch just outside of town, had been courting Dahlia for 3 months. He was 26 years old, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and eyes the color of creek water in shadow. He had a quiet strength about him, the kind of man who didn't need to raise his voice to command respect. Catherine had set her sights on him the moment he arrived in Eureka last spring, but Wade had eyes only for Dahlia. Dahlia pressed her hand against her shoulder where the bullet had grazed her. That had been Catherine's doing too, though she would never be able to prove it. Someone had taken a shot at her from the alley behind the boarding house 2 nights ago. The doctor said she was lucky. Dahlia didn't feel particularly lucky, as she stood in the August heat with nowhere to go and her name dragged through the mud. She made her way toward the edge of town, carrying the one carpet bag that held everything she owned. The wound made her movements slow and painful. She needed to find work, needed to find shelter, but more than anything, she needed to warn Wade about Catherine's true nature before the woman sank her claws any deeper. The Double J Ranch sprawled across the valley north of Eureka, cattle dotting the golden hillsides like dark stones scattered by a giant hand. Dahlia had been out here once before, when Wade had invited her for a Sunday picnic by the creek that ran through the property. She remembered the way the sunlight had played across his face when he laughed, the gentle way he had helped her across the stepping stones, his hand warm and steady in hers. The walk took over an hour, and by the time she reached the ranch gates, sweat had plastered her dark blonde hair to her forehead, and her shoulders screamed with every step. A ranch hand spotted her from the corral and jogged over, concern evident on his weathered face. "Madam, you all right? You look about ready to drop." "I need to see Wade Quinlan," Dahlia said, trying to keep her voice steady. "It's urgent." The ranch hand's eyes dropped to her shoulder where blood had seeped through her shawl. "Lord above, come on, let's get you to the house. Boss will want the doc to look at you again." He led her across the yard toward the main house, a sturdy structure built from local timber with a wide porch that wrapped around the front. Before they reached it, Wade emerged from the barn, brushing hay from his shirt. His eyes found her immediately, and Dahlia watched his expression shift from surprise to alarm in the span of a heartbeat. "Dahlia." He crossed the distance between them in long strides. "What happened? Your shoulder." "We need to talk," she said quietly. "Alone, if possible." Wade nodded, his jaw tight. He turned to the ranch hand. "Thank you, Pete. I've got her from here." He took Dahlia's carpetbag and guided her toward a small office attached to the barn, his hand hovering near her uninjured arm as if afraid she might collapse. Once inside, he set down her bag and closed the door, shutting out the curious glances of the other ranch hands. "Tell me everything," Wade said, turning to face her. The office was simple, containing a desk covered in ledgers, a filing cabinet, and 2 chairs. Sunlight streamed through the single window, illuminating dust motes that danced in the air. Dahlia sank into one of the chairs, suddenly exhausted. Catherine Morley accused me of theft this morning, told Marshall Bennett that she had seen me taking money from the store's cash box. It's a lie, Wade. Every word of it is a lie, but no one believes me. Wade's hands clenched into fists at his sides. That's ridiculous. Anyone who knows you would know you are not capable of theft. The marshal doesn't know me well enough, apparently. Mr. Henderson fired me on the spot and I lost my room. She looked up at him, fighting back tears. But that is not even the worst part. I think Catherine is the one who shot me 2 nights ago. The color drained from Wade's face. He pulled the second chair close and sat down, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. Why would she do this? Because she wants you, Dahlia said simply. She's wanted you since the day you arrived in town. I saw the way she looked at you at the church social, at the town dance. When you started courting me instead, she was furious. I thought she was just jealous that she would get over it, but I was wrong. Wade was quiet for a long moment, his eyes searching her face. Then he reached out and took her hand, his calloused fingers warm against hers. I need you to understand something, Dahlia. I don't believe a single word Catherine Morley says, and I never will. I know your character. I know your heart. This changes nothing between us. The relief that washed over Dahlia was so intense she felt dizzy. You believe me, without question. His thumb traced small circles on the back of her hand. But we need to prove your innocence. We need to expose Catherine's lies before she does any more damage. How? She's already convinced the marshal and Mr. Henderson. Who's going to believe me over her? Wade stood, pacing to the window. Catherine made a mistake when she involved me. She doesn't know it yet, but she's about to find out that lying is a dangerous game. He turned back to Dahlia. First things first. You are staying here at the ranch. We have a guest room in the house, and Mrs. Patterson, the housekeeper, will look after you while your shoulder heals. I can't impose like that. It's not an imposition. The ranch owner, Mr. Johnson, is a fair man. When I explain the situation, he'll agree. Wade crossed back to her, crouching down so they were at eye level. Let me protect you, Dahlia. Let me help you. She looked into his eyes, those creek water eyes that had captured her attention the first time they met, and nodded. All right. Mrs. Patterson turned out to be a plump woman in her 50s with kind eyes and capable hands. She clucked over Dahlia's wound, changed the bandage, and installed her in a sunny bedroom on the 2nd floor of the ranch house. The room was simple but comfortable, with a brass bed covered in a colorful quilt, a washstand, and a window that looked out over the ranch yard. You rest now, Mrs. Patterson said, smoothing the quilt. I'll bring you some soup in a bit. You look like you haven't eaten properly in days. Dahlia wanted to protest, but exhaustion pulled at her like an undertow. She lay back against the pillows and closed her eyes, listening to the sounds of the ranch drifting through the open window. Horses whinnied, men called to each other, and somewhere in the distance, cattle lowed. It was peaceful in a way that town never was, and despite everything that had happened, she felt safer here than she had in weeks. She must have dozed off because when she opened her eyes again, the sun had shifted and Wade was sitting in the chair by the window, watching her with an unreadable expression. I didn't mean to wake you, he said softly. You didn't. Dahlia pushed herself up, wincing as her shoulder protested. How long was I asleep? About 2 hours. Mrs. Patterson left soup on the table there. He nodded toward the nightstand where a bowl sat steaming gently. I told Mr. Johnson about the situation. He said you are welcome to stay as long as you need. That's very generous of him. He's a good man. He also suggested that I ride into town tomorrow and do some investigating. If Catherine is lying about you stealing, there might be evidence to prove it. Dahlia picked up the soup spoon, her hand steadier now after the rest. The soup was thick with vegetables and beef, warming her from the inside. What kind of evidence? Well, if money was actually stolen, the question is who really took it. And if money wasn't stolen at all, then Catherine fabricated the entire story. Either way, there should be some way to prove the truth. Wade leaned back in his chair. I also want to talk to some people who might have seen something the night you were shot. Be careful, Dahlia warned. Catherine is clever. She wouldn't have made these accusations unless she thought she could get away with it. I'll be careful. Wade stood and moved closer to the bed. But I want you to know something, Dahlia. I'm not going to let her win. I'm not going to let her destroy what we have. The intensity in his voice made Dahlia's heart skip. What do we have, Wade? He sat on the edge of the bed, close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his eyes. I think you know. I've been taking things slow because I didn't want to rush you, but maybe that was a mistake. Maybe I should have been clearer about my intentions. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch gentle. I'm falling in love with you, Dahlia Fletcher. Have been since the day you spilled coffee on my boots at the general store and apologized so profusely I couldn't help but laugh. Dahlia remembered that day. She had been so embarrassed, and he had been so kind about it. I'm falling in love with you too, she whispered. Wade's smile was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, but she didn't want to pull away. When his lips met hers, it was gentle and sweet, a promise of things to come. He tasted like coffee and hope, and when he finally drew back, Dahlia felt branded by the kiss, marked as his in a way that had nothing to do with possession and everything to do with choice. Get some rest, he said, his voice rough. Tomorrow we start fighting back. The next morning, Wade rode into Eureka just after dawn. The town was already stirring, shopkeepers opening their doors, the smell of fresh bread drifting from the bakery. He tied his horse outside the general store and pushed through the door, the bell jangling overhead. Mr. Henderson looked up from behind the counter, his expression hardening when he saw Wade. If you're here about Dahlia Fletcher, you're wasting your time. I'm here about the truth, Wade said evenly, which seems to be in short supply lately. The truth is that girl stole from me. Catherine saw it with her own eyes. Did she, or did she just say she did? Wade moved closer to the counter. How much money was supposedly stolen? Henderson shifted uncomfortably. That's not your concern. It is when you are accusing the woman I intend to marry of theft. How much? $20 over the course of several weeks. And your books reflect this shortage. Henderson's silence was answer enough. Wade felt a surge of satisfaction. You haven't actually checked, have you? You just took Catherine's word for it. Catherine is a trustworthy girl. She's worked here for 2 years without any problems. Then you won't mind if we go through the books together right now. Wade's voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. Unless you'd rather wait for the marshal to do it. Henderson's face reddened. Now see here, you can't just come in and make demands. I'm not making demands. I'm asking you to verify the accusation you used to destroy an innocent woman's reputation. That seems reasonable to me. After a long moment, Henderson pulled out the ledger and slapped it on the counter. Wade spent the next hour going through every entry, comparing receipts to recorded sales. His mother had taught him bookkeeping when he was young, and he knew what he was looking for. When he finally closed the ledger, he looked Henderson square in the eye. There's no shortage. Every penny is accounted for, which means Catherine Morley lied. Henderson's face went pale. That can't be right. Let me see. He grabbed the ledger and went through it himself, his finger tracing the columns. When he finished, he looked sick. Lord above, I fired Dahlia for nothing. Worse than nothing. You fired her based on a lie told by a jealous woman. Wade picked up his hat from the counter. I expect you to make this right, Mr. Henderson. Tell the marshal what you found. Tell everyone who will listen that Dahlia is innocent. I will. I swear I will. Henderson rubbed his face. Where is Catherine? She was supposed to be here an hour ago. I imagine she's trying to figure out her next move, Wade said grimly. If I were you, I'd find yourself a new employee, one who doesn't bear false witness. He left the store and headed for the marshal's office. Marshal Bennett was a stocky man with a thick gray mustache and a no-nonsense attitude. He listened to Wade's explanation and the findings from the ledger with a deepening frown. "Well, hell," Bennett said when Wade finished. "That puts a different light on things, doesn't it?" "It does. I want you to know that someone took a shot at Dahlia 2 nights ago. She thinks it was Catherine." "That's a serious accusation. Do you have any proof?" "Not yet. But I'd like permission to ask around, see if anyone saw anything unusual that night." Bennett nodded slowly. "You do that. And I'll have a word with Miss Morley about lying to an officer of the law. That kind of thing doesn't sit well with me." Wade spent the rest of the morning talking to people who lived near the boarding house where Dahlia had been staying. Most hadn't seen anything, but an older woman who lived across the street remembered seeing someone in a dark cloak hurrying away from the alley around the time of the shooting. "Couldn't see the face," she said, rocking in her chair on the porch. "But it was a woman, I'm sure of that. The way she moved, the shape of her, and she was carrying something, maybe a rifle wrapped in cloth." "What time was this?" "Just after 9. I remember because the church bells had just finished ringing the hour." Wade thanked her and continued his investigation. By early afternoon, he had pieced together a timeline. Catherine had left the boarding house where she lived around 8:30 that night, telling her landlady she was going for a walk. She hadn't returned until after 10, and when she did, her dress had been dusty, as if she had been kneeling or lying on the ground. It wasn't enough for a conviction, but it was enough to paint a picture. Wade rode back to the ranch feeling grimly satisfied. Catherine had underestimated him, underestimated what he would do to protect Dahlia. That was going to be her downfall. He found Dahlia in the kitchen with Mrs. Patterson, helping to snap green beans despite her injured shoulder. She looked up when he entered, hope and fear warring in her eyes. "The ledger is clean," Wade said without preamble. "There was no theft. Henderson knows he made a mistake, and the marshal is going to have words with Catherine about lying." Dahlia's hand stilled on the beans. "Really? Really?" Wade crossed to her, taking her hands in his. "Your name is going to be cleared, Dahlia, I promise you that." Tears spilled down her cheeks, and she pulled one hand free to wipe at them. "I was so scared no one would believe me. I believe you, and now everyone else will too." He glanced at Mrs. Patterson, who was pretending to be very interested in the pot on the stove. "Come on, let's take a walk. I want to talk to you about something." They walked down to the creek that ran through the property, the same creek where they had shared that picnic months ago. The water burbled over smooth stones, and cottonwood trees provided dappled shade. Dahlia sat on a flat rock near the bank, and Wade settled beside her. "What happens now?" she asked, watching the water flow past. "Now we wait for Catherine to make her next move. She's not going to give up just because her first plan failed. I'm afraid of what she might do." Dahlia turned to look at him. "She already tried to kill me once. She won't get another chance. You are safe here on the ranch, and I'm not going to let you out of my sight." Wade took her hand again, finding comfort in the simple contact. "Dahlia, I meant what I said yesterday. About my intentions, about how I feel. I know." Her voice was soft. "I feel the same way. Then marry me." The words came out before he had fully thought them through, but once they were spoken, he knew they were right. "I know it's fast, and I know the timing is terrible, but I don't want to wait. I don't want to give Catherine or anyone else the chance to come between us." Dahlia stared at him, her eyes wide. "You want to marry me, more than I've ever wanted anything." He shifted to face her fully. "I love you, Dahlia. I love your kindness and your strength. I love the way you see the good in people, even when they don't deserve it. I love your laugh and the way you bite your lip when you are concentrating. I want to build a life with you, have children with you, grow old with you. Say yes." She was crying again, but she was also smiling. "Yes, yes, of course yes." Wade pulled her into his arms, careful of her injured shoulder, and kissed her deeply. This kiss was different from the one in her bedroom, hungrier and more urgent. It was a claiming and a surrender all at once, and when they finally broke apart, they were both breathless. "We'll do it properly," Wade said, resting his forehead against hers. "Church, wedding, white dress, the whole thing. But soon. I don't want to wait months. Neither do I." Dahlia laughed, the sound bright and joyful. "How about 3 weeks? That should give me time to make a dress and arrange everything. 3 weeks sounds perfect." They sat by the creek for another hour, making plans and dreaming about the future. Wade told her about the piece of land he had been saving to buy, 100 acres on the eastern edge of the valley with good water and plenty of grass. He had enough money set aside now to make an offer, and if the owner accepted, they could build a house there, start their own ranch. Dahlia talked about the garden she wanted to plant, the chickens she wanted to raise, the children she hoped they would have. Her eyes shone when she spoke, and Wade felt his heart swell with love for her. This woman, this brave, beautiful woman, was going to be his wife. But their peace was short-lived. 2 days later, Catherine Morley showed up at the Double J Ranch. Wade was working in the corral, breaking a young stallion to saddle when Pete came running. "Boss, there's a woman here to see you, says it's urgent." "Who is it?" "That Miss Morley from town. The one who got Miss Fletcher in trouble." Wade's jaw tightened. He handed the reins to another ranch hand and strode toward the ranch house. Catherine was standing on the porch, looking cool and composed in a blue dress that matched her eyes. She was a pretty woman, Wade had to admit, with honey blonde hair and delicate features. But there was something calculating in her expression that had always put him off. "Mr. Quinlan," she said, smiling. "Thank you for seeing me, Miss Morley." Wade didn't return the smile. "What brings you out here?" I wanted to apologize. "I made a terrible mistake and I need to make it right." Her eyes were wide and innocent, but Wade saw the calculation behind them. "I was confused about what I saw at the store. I thought I saw Dahlia taking money, but I was wrong." Mr. Henderson confirmed that nothing was actually missing. "Yes, he did. After I insisted he check the books." Catherine's smile faltered slightly. "I feel just awful about the whole thing. I've come to apologize to Dahlia as well." "Is she here?" "She is, but I don't think she wants to see you." "Please, Mr. Quinlan, I need to make this right. I need her to know how sorry I am." Catherine took a step closer, her hand reaching out as if to touch his arm. "I made a mistake. Surely you can understand that. Everyone makes mistakes." Wade stepped back, avoiding her touch. "Some mistakes are more serious than others. You cost Dahlia her job and her home. You damaged her reputation. That's not the kind of mistake that gets fixed with a simple apology." "Then what can I do? How can I make amends?" "You can tell the truth. All of it. Including who really shot at Dahlia that night." Catherine's face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" Wade moved closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous level. "Someone took a shot at Dahlia 2 nights before you accused her of theft. Someone who was seen leaving the alley around the same time. Someone wearing a dark cloak and carrying what looked like a rifle. That wouldn't have been you, would it, Catherine? Of course not. How dare you accuse me of such a thing?" But her voice was too shrill, her denial too quick. "Then you won't mind if the marshal searches your room for a weapon?" Catherine's composure cracked completely. You have no right to harass me like this. I came here in good faith to apologize, and you're treating me like a criminal, if the shoe fits." Wade crossed his arms. "Let me make something very clear to you, Catherine. I know what you've been doing. I know you've been lying about Dahlia because you're jealous. I know you want me for yourself, but it's never going to happen. I love Dahlia and I'm going to marry her. Nothing you say or do will change that." Catherine's pretty face twisted into something ugly. "You're making a mistake. Dahlia isn't who you think she is. She's weak and plain and completely wrong for you. I could make you happy, Wade. I could give you everything you need." "You could give me nothing I want." Wade's voice was cold. "Leave, Catherine. Leave now and don't come back. And if you ever try to hurt Dahlia again in any way, I promise you will regret it." For a moment, Catherine just stood there, trembling with rage. Then she spun on her heel and marched to her horse, mounting with angry, jerky movements. She galloped away from the ranch without looking back, leaving a cloud of dust in her wake. Wade watched her go, then turned to find Dahlia standing in the doorway of the house. She had heard everything. "She's not going to give up," Dahlia said quietly. "I know, but she's running out of options." Wade climbed the porch steps and pulled Dahlia into his arms. "We just need to be careful until the wedding. Once we're married, there's nothing she can do." But Wade underestimated Catherine's desperation. 3 nights later, someone set fire to the barn where he kept his personal horse. Wade woke to the smell of smoke and the sound of horses screaming in terror. He bolted from the bunkhouse where he slept when staying late at the ranch and ran toward the barn. Flames were already licking up the sides of the structure, and the heat was intense. "Get water." He shouted to the other ranch hands who were emerging from their beds. "Form a line from the well." He grabbed a blanket, soaked it in the water trough, and wrapped it around himself before plunging into the burning barn. The smoke was thick and choking, making it hard to see or breathe. He found the stalls and began releasing the horses, slapping them on the hindquarters to drive them out into the night. His own horse, a chestnut gelding named Copper, was in the last stall, wild-eyed with fear. "Easy, boy, easy," Wade murmured, fumbling with the latch. The wood was hot enough to burn his hands, but he got it open and led Copper out just as part of the roof collapsed behind them. They stumbled into the cool night air, both coughing and gasping. The other ranch hands had formed a bucket brigade and were dousing the flames, but it was clear the barn was a total loss. By the time the fire was out, nothing remained but charred timber and ash. Wade stood there, covered in soot and sweat, staring at the destruction. Then he saw it. A piece of blue fabric caught on a nail near what had been the barn door. He walked over and pulled it free, recognizing it immediately. It was the same shade of blue as the dress Catherine had worn when she visited the ranch. "That's enough," he said to himself. "That's more than enough." He marched to the main house, ignoring the protests of his body. Dahlia met him at the door, her face pale with fear. "Wade, oh God, are you all right?" "I'm fine. The horses are fine, but Catherine just made her final mistake." He held up the scrap of fabric. "I'm riding into town right now, and I'm going to the marshal. This ends tonight. I'm coming with you." "Dahlia, I'm coming with you," she repeated firmly. "This is my fight too." They rode into Irica as dawn was breaking, the sky painted in shades of pink and gold. Marshal Bennett was just opening his office when they arrived, and his eyes widened at the sight of Wade's soot-covered appearance. "What happened?" "Catherine Morley set fire to the barn at the Double J Ranch last night. I have evidence." Wade showed him the fabric. "She wore a dress this color when she visited the ranch 3 days ago. And I'm willing to bet if you search her room, you will find that dress with a piece torn off." Bennett's face hardened. "That's arson. That's a serious crime." "So is attempted murder, which is what she committed when she shot at Dahlia. and bearing false witness. How many crimes does she need to commit before you arrest her? Point taken. Bennett grabbed his hat. Let's go have a talk with Miss Morley. They found Catherine at the boarding house where she lived, still in her nightgown. Her landlady let them in with a worried expression, and they climbed the stairs to Catherine's room. Bennett knocked sharply. Miss Morley, it's Marshal Bennett. Open up. There was a long pause, then the sound of footsteps. Catherine opened the door a crack, her hair loose around her shoulders. Marshal, what's this about? I need to search your room. There was a fire at the Double J Ranch last night, and we have reason to believe you were involved. That's ridiculous. I've been here all night. Then you won't mind if I take a look around. Bennett pushed past her into the room. Dahlia and Wade followed, with Catherine protesting shrilly. It didn't take long to find the dress. It was stuffed in the back of her wardrobe, and sure enough, a piece of fabric was torn from the hem. Bennett held it up, comparing it to the scrap Wade had found. It was a perfect match. Catherine Morley, I'm arresting you for arson, Bennett said, pulling out a pair of handcuffs. No. This is a setup. They planted that dress. Catherine lunged toward the door, but Bennett caught her easily. We'll let a judge decide that. He snapped the cuffs around her wrists. You also need to answer some questions about the shooting 2 weeks ago and about making false accusations. You're in a world of trouble, young lady. Catherine's face crumpled and she began to cry. But these weren't the pretty, delicate tears she had used to manipulate Mr. Henderson. These were ugly, desperate sobs. I just wanted him to love me. I just wanted what she has. It's not fair. She's nobody, and I would have been perfect for him. You're nobody to me, Wade said coldly. You're a liar and a criminal, and you're going to pay for what you've done. Catherine was still sobbing as Bennett led her away. The landlady stood in the hallway, wringing her hands, but Dahlia felt nothing but relief. It was over. Finally, truly over. Wade turned to her, his face still streaked with soot but his eyes warm. Let's go home. They rode back to the ranch in companionable silence, the morning sun warming their backs. The burned barn was a stark reminder of what had happened, but it was also proof that they had survived. Catherine had thrown everything she had at them, and they had come through it together. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of activity. The ranch hands helped clear away the debris from the barn and started building a new one. Mr. Henderson formally apologized to Dahlia and offered her job back, though she politely declined, saying she had other plans. Marshal Bennett confirmed that Catherine would be tried for arson, attempted murder, and bearing false witness. The evidence was overwhelming and the town was abuzz with scandal, but Dahlia focused on her wedding. Mrs. Patterson helped her sew a dress of cream-colored silk with delicate lace at the collar and cuffs. It wasn't as fancy as some of the dresses in the catalogs from San Francisco, but it was beautiful in its simplicity. Wade bought a new suit and had his boots polished until they shone. They were married on a Saturday afternoon in the little church in Eureka, with the whole town in attendance. The minister was an old man with kind eyes who spoke about love and forgiveness and the sanctity of marriage. When it came time for the vows, Wade's voice was steady and sure. I, Wade Quinlan, take you, Dahlia Fletcher, to be my lawfully wedded wife. I promise to love you, honor you, and protect you all the days of my life. I promise to stand by you in times of trouble and celebrate with you in times of joy. I promise to see you, truly see you, and cherish the woman you are. This I vow before God and these witnesses. Dahlia's voice trembled, but her words were clear. I, Dahlia Fletcher, take you, Wade Quinlan, to be my lawfully wedded husband. I promise to love you, support you, and walk beside you through all of life's challenges. I promise to trust you, respect you, and build a home with you that is filled with laughter and love. I promise to be your partner in all things. This I vow before God and these witnesses." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Wade kissed her with such tenderness that Dahlia felt tears prick her eyes. The congregation applauded, and they walked back down the aisle hand in hand, united now in the eyes of God and the law. The reception was held at the ranch, with tables set up in the yard and food provided by every woman in town who wanted to make amends for doubting Dahlia. There was roasted beef and chicken, fresh bread and butter, pies and cakes, and every kind of vegetable from the late summer gardens. A fiddler played lively tunes, and people danced on the packed earth until the stars came out. Wade danced with his new wife under the cottonwood trees, holding her close and whispering promises in her ear. "I'm going to make you so happy," he said. "I'm going to give you everything you've ever dreamed of." "You already have," Dahlia replied, resting her head on his chest. "You believed in me when no one else did. You fought for me. You loved me. That's all I ever wanted." They spent their wedding night in the guest room that had become Dahlia's room during her stay at the ranch. Mrs. Patterson had filled it with candles and fresh flowers, and the bed was turned down invitingly. Wade carried Dahlia over the threshold, and she laughed at the old-fashioned gesture. "I've wanted to do that since the day you arrived here," he said, setting her down gently. "Wanted to claim you as mine." "I've been yours since the day I spilled coffee on your boots," Dahlia admitted. "I just didn't know it yet." They came together with a passion that had been building for months, hands and lips exploring, discovering, claiming. Wade was gentle with her injured shoulder, even though it was mostly healed now. He worshipped her body with his hands and mouth, learning what made her gasp, what made her sigh. And when they finally joined together, it felt like coming home. Afterward, they lay tangled in the sheets, skin to skin, hearts beating in sync. Wade traced patterns on Dahlia's bare shoulder, his touch reverent. "I love you," he said quietly. "I will love you until the day I die and beyond." "I love you too," Dahlia whispered. "Thank you for seeing through Catherine's lies. Thank you for believing in me." "I will always believe in you, always." They fell asleep in each other's arms, the future stretching out before them like an unwritten book full of blank pages waiting to be filled. The next morning, they rode out to see the land Wade wanted to buy. It was everything he had promised, 100 acres of rolling grassland with a creek running through the center and a stand of oak trees on the highest point. The view stretched for miles, mountains in the distance and the valley spread out below. "This is where I want to build our house," Wade said, dismounting and helping Dahlia down. "Right here under these oaks. We'll have a porch that faces west so we can watch the sunset every night." Dahlia turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. "It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. The owner accepted my offer yesterday. The land is ours." Wade pulled her close, kissing her temple. "We can start building as soon as you're ready." "Let's start tomorrow." Dahlia grinned up at him. "I want to get started on our life together. I want to build something that's just ours." They spent the rest of the day walking the property, making plans, dreaming big dreams. They would build a small house at first, just enough for the two of them, and add on as their family grew. They would start with a few head of cattle and build the herd slowly. They would plant a garden and raise chickens and make a life out of hard work and love. Over the next year, their dreams began to take shape. With the help of Wade's friends from the Double J Ranch, they built a sturdy house of timber and stone with the promised porch facing west. Dahlia planted her garden and it flourished under her care. Wade bought 20 head of cattle and spent long days in the saddle, learning the rhythms of his own land. Catherine Morley was tried and found guilty of arson and attempted murder. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison, and Dahlia felt no satisfaction at the verdict, only a lingering sadness that someone she had once called friend had fallen so far. But she didn't waste time dwelling on it. She was too busy building her new life to worry about the past. In the spring of 1880, Dahlia discovered she was pregnant. Wade was over the moon with joy, treating her like she was made of spun glass. She laughed at his overprotectiveness, but secretly loved it, loved knowing that she was cherished and valued. Their son was born on a cold December morning, with Mrs. Patterson acting as midwife and Wade pacing holes in the floor downstairs. The labor was long and difficult, but when Dahlia finally held her baby in her arms, she knew every moment of pain had been worth it. He was perfect, with a downy cap of dark hair and his father's strong features. "What should we name him?" Wade asked, sitting on the edge of the bed and running a gentle finger over his son's tiny hand. "I was thinking James," Dahlia said. "After your father." Wade's eyes grew suspiciously bright. He would have loved that. James Wade Quinlan, it's a strong name. Little James grew like a weed, healthy and happy. He had his father's quiet determination and his mother's gentle nature. By the time he was 2, Dahlia was pregnant again, and their daughter Sarah was born in the summer of 1883. She was a tiny thing with blonde hair and blue eyes that looked almost gray in certain lights. Wade was a devoted father, spending every spare moment with his children. He taught James to ride almost before the boy could walk, and he was endlessly patient with Sarah's endless questions and boundless energy. Dahlia would often stand in the doorway of their house and watch her family, her heart so full of love she thought it might burst. The ranch prospered. Wade's herd grew, and he became known throughout the valley as a fair and honest rancher. Dahlia sold vegetables and eggs in town, building her own small income. They paid off the land and began to expand, buying another 50 acres when the neighboring farmer decided to move back east. Years passed in a blur of seasons. Summers were spent working the land, winters huddled around the fire telling stories. James grew into a tall, serious boy who loved the ranch as much as his father did. Sarah was bright and curious, always reading books she borrowed from the schoolteacher in town. In 1888, when James was 8 and Sarah was 5, Dahlia gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl they named William and Grace. The house that had once seemed so spacious now felt cramped with 4 children running through it, and Wade started planning an addition. "We're going to need more bedrooms," he said one night, lying in bed with Dahlia curled against his side. "And maybe a bigger kitchen. You've been complaining about the lack of counter space." "I have not been complaining," Dahlia protested, then laughed. "All right, maybe a little. But I love our home just the way it is. We can love it and still make it bigger. Our family is growing. We need to grow with it." They built the addition the following spring, adding 2 more bedrooms and expanding the kitchen. The house now sprawled comfortably under the oak trees, painted white with green shutters and flower boxes under the windows. It looked like something out of a magazine, and Dahlia felt a swell of pride every time she looked at it. The children grew, as children do. James took over more responsibilities on the ranch, working alongside his father from dawn until dusk. Sarah discovered a talent for sewing and made all her own clothes, as well as dresses for Grace. William was the adventurous one, always climbing trees and exploring the creek, coming home covered in mud and grinning from ear to ear. Grace was quiet and thoughtful, more likely to be found reading under a tree than playing with the others. In 1895, when James was 15, a young woman named Emily started attending the same church. She was the daughter of a shopkeeper in town, pretty and sweet-natured, and James was immediately smitten. Dahlia watched her son fall in love and felt a pang of recognition. He had the same look Wade had worn all those years ago, that mixture of hope and fear and desperate longing. "He's going to ask her to marry him," Wade said one evening, watching James ride off toward town with his hair slicked back and his best shirt on. "He's too young," Dahlia protested. "He's the same age I was when I met you, and look how well that turned out." Wade pulled her onto his lap, kissing her neck. "We raised a good boy, Dahlia. He knows his own heart." James did ask Emily to marry him, and to no one's surprise she said yes. They were married in the summer of 1896, and Emily moved into the ranch house with them. She fit in seamlessly, helping with the cooking and the younger children, laughing at William's jokes and reading with Grace in the evenings. The ranch continued to prosper. Wade hired more hands as the work increased, and the small ranch they had started with became one of the most successful operations in the valley. Dahlia started raising sheep as well as chickens, selling wool and mutton in addition to her vegetables and eggs. They had worked hard for everything they had, and it showed in every sturdy fence post, every healthy animal, every golden field of hay. In 1899, Sarah met a young lawyer who had moved to Eureka from Sacramento. His name was Thomas, and he was tall and scholarly, with kind eyes and a dry sense of humor. Sarah fell hard and fast, and Dahlia saw herself in her daughter, saw that same willingness to trust, to believe in love. "Is he good enough for her?" Wade asked, watching Thomas and Sarah walk hand in hand through the garden. "No one will ever be good enough for our daughters," Dahlia replied, "but he comes close. He's respectful and intelligent, and he makes her happy. That's what matters." Sarah and Thomas were married in the spring of 1900, and they moved into a house in town where Thomas had his practice. Dahlia cried at the wedding, not from sadness, but from the bittersweet knowledge that her children were growing up, building lives of their own. William shocked everyone by announcing he wanted to join the army. He was 18 and restless, eager to see the world beyond the valley. Wade was against it at first, but Dahlia reminded him that their son needed to make his own choices, forge his own path. "He'll come back," she said, watching William pack his bags. "This is his home. He'll come back to it." And he did 3 years later, older and more serious, but still the same adventurous boy at heart. He met a woman during his service, a general's daughter named Clara, and they were married in a simple ceremony at the ranch. Clara was sophisticated and worldly, but she took to ranch life with surprising ease. Grace, the baby of the family, stayed home the longest. She loved the ranch and had no desire to leave. She helped Dahlia with the house and the garden, and she started teaching at the small school in Eureka when she was 20. She didn't marry until she was 28, choosing a rancher from the next valley over named Robert. He was quiet and steady, and he clearly adored Grace. By 1910, Wade and Dahlia were grandparents many times over. James and Emily had 4 children, Sarah and Thomas had 3, William and Clara had 2, and Grace and Robert had just welcomed their first. The house was always full of noise and laughter when the grandchildren came to visit, and Wade would sit on the porch with the little ones climbing all over him, telling stories about the old days. "Remember when we first met?" Dahlia asked one evening, sitting beside him on the porch swing. They were alone for once, all the children and grandchildren gone home. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "I remember you spilling coffee all over my boots," Wade said with a grin. "I remember thinking you were the prettiest thing I'd ever seen, even when you were apologizing so hard you couldn't catch your breath. I remember you laughing instead of getting angry. I remember thinking you must be a good man if you could laugh at something like that." And then Catherine tried to ruin everything, but she didn't succeed. Dahlia took his hand, their fingers intertwining automatically after so many years. "You saw through every single word," she said. "You believed in me when no one else did." "I always will," Wade said, lifting her hand to his lips. "Until my last breath, I will believe in you." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun sink below the horizon. The ranch spread out before them, a testament to everything they had built together. The new barn stood solid and strong, replacing the one Catherine had burned down so many years ago. The pastures were full of cattle and sheep, the garden was lush and green, and the house behind them was filled with memories of love and laughter. "We did good, didn't we?" Dahlia said softly. "We did better than good. We built a life. We built a family. We built something that will last long after we're gone." Wade pulled her closer, and she rested her head on his shoulder. "I love you, Dahlia Quinlan. I have loved you for over 30 years, and I will love you for 30 more if God grants us the time. I love you too, more than words can say." They sat there until the stars came out, two people who had weathered lies and betrayal and come out stronger on the other side. Two people who had chosen each other every single day, through good times and bad. Two people who had built a legacy of love that would endure for generations. Inside the house, the clock chimed 9. Wade stood and offered Dahlia his hand, pulling her to her feet. They walked inside together, closing the door on the night, secure in the knowledge that no matter what tomorrow brought, they would face it side by side. The years continued to roll by, each one bringing its own joys and challenges. In 1915, the ranch celebrated 40 years of operation. All 4 of their children came home for the occasion, bringing their families with them. The house was packed to bursting, and they set up tents in the yard for all the grandchildren. It was chaos and noise and absolute perfection. Wade, now 63 years old, stood up during the celebration dinner and raised his glass. "I want to propose a toast," he said, his voice still strong despite his age. "To my wife, Dahlia, who took a chance on a cowboy with nothing but a dream and a piece of land. You've given me 4 incredible children, a dozen grandchildren, and more happiness than any man deserves. Everything we have, everything we've built exists because you believed in us. I love you more today than I did the day we married, and that's saying something." Dahlia's eyes filled with tears as everyone raised their glasses and echoed the toast. She stood and moved to Wade's side, and he wrapped his arm around her waist, pulling her close. "And I want to toast to all of you," Dahlia said, looking around the table at her family. "You are our greatest achievement. Not the ranch, not the cattle, but you. Each of you is a testament to the power of love and hard work. We are so proud of the lives you've built, the people you've become. Never forget where you came from, but never be afraid to forge your own paths." James stood next, his own children watching with interest. "Dad, Mom, there's something we wanted to tell you. We've been talking, all of us kids, and we want you to know that we're going to keep this ranch going. James Jr. is already working alongside me, and William's boys have expressed interest in learning the business. The Quinlan Ranch isn't going anywhere. It's going to be here for our grandchildren and their grandchildren after that." Wade had to turn away, overcome with emotion. Dahlia squeezed his hand, understanding. This was what they had worked for, what they had hoped for, a legacy that would outlive them. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Wade and Dahlia walked down to the creek one last time. It was the same spot where they had sat all those years ago, where Wade had proposed. The water still burbled over the smooth stones and the cottonwoods still provided shade. "You remember what you said to me here?" Wade asked, sitting on their old rock. I said yes. Dahlia sat beside him, fitting perfectly against his side. "Best decision I ever made asking you. Best decision you ever made saying yes." "I think about Catherine sometimes," Dahlia admitted. "Wonder what happened to her after she got out of prison. Does it matter? No, I suppose not. But I can't help feeling sorry for her. She threw away her whole life because she couldn't be happy for someone else, because she thought she deserved something that was never hers to take. Wade was quiet for a moment. I heard she moved back east, changed her name. Started over somewhere no one knew what she had done. Good. Everyone deserves a second chance, even people who make terrible mistakes. Dahlia looked up at the stars, the same stars that had witnessed their wedding, the births of their children, every significant moment of their lives. I hope she found happiness eventually. I hope she learned from what she did. You're too good, you know that. Wade kissed the top of her head. Most people wouldn't be so forgiving. I'm not forgiving her. I'm just letting go of the anger. There's a difference. She tried to destroy us and she failed. We won. We built something beautiful out of the ashes of her hatred. That's the best revenge there is. They sat by the creek until the moon rose high overhead, talking about the past and the future, about their children and grandchildren, about all the little moments that had made up their life together. And when they finally walked back to the house, hand in hand, they knew with absolute certainty that they had lived a good life. A life worth living. A life built on truth and trust, and a love that had survived every test thrown at it. Wade Quinlan passed away in his sleep in the winter of 1920, at the age of 68. He died peacefully, in the bed he had shared with Dahlia for over 40 years, surrounded by his family. His last words were, "I love you," whispered to the woman who had been his partner, his best friend, his everything. Dahlia mourned him deeply, but she didn't let grief consume her. She had promised to be strong, and she kept that promise. She continued to live on the ranch, helping where she could, spoiling her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, telling stories about the man who had seen through every lie and fought for their love. She lived another 15 years, dying quietly in the spring of 1935 at the age of 80. She was buried next to Wade under the oak trees where their house still stood, the house they had built together with their own hands and dreams. The ranch continued on, just as James had promised. The Quinlan name became synonymous with honesty and hard work in that valley. And every generation that followed heard the story of Wade and Dahlia, of how a former friend had spread lies to steal her man, and how the cowboy had seen through every single word. It became a legend, a reminder that true love could survive anything, that trust and faith were stronger than jealousy and deceit. And on quiet evenings, when the sun set over the western hills and painted the sky in brilliant colors, the family would gather on that porch facing west and raise a glass to the couple who had started it all. To Wade, who had believed when belief was hard. To Dahlia, who had stayed strong in the face of betrayal. To a love that had lasted a lifetime and beyond, echoing through the generations like a song that never ended. The ranch still stands today, a testament to what two people can build when they refuse to let lies tear them apart. The oak trees are ancient now, their branches spreading wide over the house. The creek still runs clear and cold, and if you listen carefully on those quiet evenings, some say you can still hear the echo of laughter, the murmur of voices sharing dreams and promises under the stars. Because some loves are too strong to be contained by a single lifetime. Some loves write themselves into the very earth, becoming part of the land, part of the legacy, part of the story that gets told over and over again. Wade and Dahlia's love was one of those loves. It survived lies and betrayal, arson and attempted murder, jealousy and rage. It survived because they chose each other, every single day in big ways and small. Their great-great-grandchildren run through those fields now, playing in the same creek, climbing the same trees. They sleep in that house built with love and determination. And they grow up hearing the story of how it all began, with a cowboy who saw the truth, and a woman who needed someone to believe in her. That's what love is, really. Seeing someone clearly, seeing past the lies others tell about them, seeing their true heart, and choosing them anyway, choosing them especially, choosing them forever. Wade Quinlan saw through every single word Catherine Morley spoke because he knew Dahlia Fletcher's heart. He knew her character, her kindness, her integrity. No lie could shake that knowledge because it was built on something solid, something real. And Dahlia loved him for it with every fiber of her being, every day of her life, even after death parted them. Because he had given her the greatest gift anyone can give another person. He had believed in her when the whole world seemed ready to condemn her. That belief, that trust, that unwavering faith in each other, that was the foundation of everything they built. The ranch, the family, the legacy. All of it sprang from that one simple truth. They saw each other clearly and loved what they saw. And that, more than anything else, is why their story endures. Not because it was easy, but because it was real. Not because they never faced challenges, but because they faced them together. Not because lies were never told, but because truth always won in the end. The story of Wade and Dahlia Quinlan is a story about seeing through the darkness to the light beneath. About trusting your heart when your head says to doubt. About building something lasting out of faith and love and sheer stubborn determination. It's a story that began with a lie and a bullet, but it ended with a legacy that spans generations. And isn't that the best revenge of all? Not destruction, but creation. Not hatred, but love. Not tearing down, but building up. Catherine Morley tried to destroy them and failed spectacularly. Wade and Dahlia didn't just survive, they thrived. They turned their suffering into strength, their trials into triumph. And in doing so, they created something that Catherine, with all her scheming and lying, could never touch. They created a love story for the ages. A reminder that truth will out, that good can triumph over evil, that love is stronger than hate. Their story is carved into the land itself now, written in the fields they plowed, the house they built, the children they raised, the life they lived together. And every sunset over those western hills is a tribute to them, a reminder of the promises they made and kept. Every star that comes out in that vast Montana sky bears witness to their love. Every generation that follows walks in their footsteps, blessed by the foundation they laid. This is their story. A story of betrayal and belief, of lies and truth, of a love that conquered all. A story that began in the Wild West of 1878 and echoes still through time, reminding us all that the greatest adventure is loving someone truly, deeply, forever. That the bravest thing we can do is believe in someone when the world tells us not to. That the most powerful force in the universe is not hate or greed or jealousy, but love. Simple, steadfast, enduring love. The kind of love Wade and Dahlia shared. The kind of love that sees through every lie and holds fast to the truth. The kind of love that builds ranches and raises families and creates legacies that last forever. That's the story of Wade Quinlan and Dahlia Fletcher. That's the legend that lives on in the valley where their ranch still stands. And that's the truth that shines brighter than any lie ever could. They loved. They lived. They won. And their happily ever after stretched across decades, blessed with children and grandchildren, filled with laughter and hard work, rooted in the land they claimed together. It was everything they had dreamed of that day by the creek and more. Because true love doesn't just survive the storms. It grows stronger because of them. Every challenge they faced, every lie they defeated, every obstacle they overcame, it all added another layer to the foundation of their relationship. By the time Wade took his last breath, their love was unshakable, unbreakable, eternal. and Dahlia carried it with her for the rest of her days, a torch that never dimmed, a flame that never went out. She would sit on that porch in her later years and tell anyone who would listen about the man who had saved her with nothing more than belief. The man who had looked past the lies to see her truth. The man who had loved her without reservation or doubt. He saw through every single word, she would say, her eyes distant with memory. Catherine thought she could win by lying, but she didn't understand. You can't defeat truth with lies. You can't destroy real love with fake accusations. Wade knew me. He knew my heart. And that was something Catherine could never take away. Those words became the family motto in a way. A reminder to always seek the truth, to believe in the people you love, to see past the surface to what lies beneath. The Quinlan children raised their children with those values, and those children passed them on to their children and on through the generations. So when you ask what happened after the lies were exposed and Catherine was punished, the answer is simple. Life happened. Beautiful, messy, wonderful life. Wade and Dahlia lived it fully and loved each other fiercely until death parted them. And even then, their love didn't end. It transformed, became something bigger than just the two of them. It became a legacy, a lesson, a light to guide future generations. That's what real love does. It doesn't just exist in the moment. It ripples outward, touching everyone it encounters, changing the world in small but significant ways. Wade and Dahlia's love did that. It changed their children, their grandchildren, their community. It became a story people told when they needed to remember that good triumphs over evil, that truth defeats lies, that love conquers all. And now their story is complete. From that first meeting over spilled coffee to their final rest under the oak trees, it's a story of faith and trust and love that refused to die. A story that began with a lie but ended with a truth so powerful it echoes through time itself. Wade Quinlan saw through every single word Catherine Morley spoke. And because he did, because he believed in Dahlia when no one else would, they built a life that mattered. A love that lasted. A legacy that endures. And they lived happily ever after in the truest sense of those words. Not because their life was perfect or easy, but because they faced it together, hand in hand, heart to heart, from that August day in 1878 until their last breaths decades later. This is their story. This is their truth. This is their happily ever after. And it all began with a cowboy who knew how to see past the lies to the heart of the woman he loved.